more popular than we are in the room based on our French speaking skills from Center for Multi-Party Democracy. I'll give her the opportunity to introduce herself more better. And the second one will be Diana Kasakal from Speak Up Africa. And I believe the session was to be moderated by Brian Kidinji. I understand we have a couple of Brians inside, so.
Topic is about strengthening the rule of law. It's very simple. We start by understanding, first of all, what is the rule of law? Standing from the perspective of your work, could you sum up that in Kenya, do we have equality under the law? In a scale of 1 to 10, do we have it? And if it's yes, around 8, could you describe it? If it's no, what are the challenges?
All right, so asante sana, Brian, for that question. I think we got introduced. So my name is Ndenya. I work for the Center for Multi-Party Democracy as a project officer under the Youth Docket. So we work with young people mainly within our political parties to ensure that we are giving them the platforms that they need or they require to either advocate for issues that affect them, or at the same time also take part in formulation of policies on issues that are of interest to them. But over and above that, well, CMD does a whole lot of other things. We won't go into that.
How many are with us? That's nice. At least I know that we are continuing in one voice. So back to your response, Madam Ndenya.
All right, so you asked about what CMD does with regards to working with young people. So we are a political parties membership-based organization. So mainly what that means is we work with political parties that have representation in both the National Assembly and the county assemblies. So, and with this regard, they're elected members or even nominated members. So through part of our programs, rather some of our programs entail youth development. And for the youth development programs, we capacity build youths. I know we've overused this word a lot, or this term a lot in this in this workshop. But by capacity building the youths, we not just inform them, we offer civic education opportunities for them. We offer platforms for them to, interact with their leaders through whether it's intergenerational dialogue platforms, town halls, public lectures. But over and above that, we also have policy dialogue forums that we also run as an organization. Our biggest dialogue platform, of course, I know most people here are aware of the People Dialogue Festival. And this particular one happens annually, giving a platform where different stakeholders can come into dialogue with each other. But over and above that, we are also acknowledging, rather we acknowledge the fact that 4 days are not enough for dialogue. So part of what we do is now devolving the PDF affair into the different counties that we are operational in. What are some of the challenges in that space? And with regards to also ensuring that the youth are stepping up to these spaces to participate, and not just to participate, but to also contribute to discussions or conversations that are of public interest. Challenges there include limited, I know we can't say it's limited access to information because, well, Matters Constitution and the Constitution itself is actually available online. But then again, the accessibility of that particular tool might not be as accessible for someone who's in Mashinani compared to people in Nairobi. Again, might be actually a problem of the messaging. Are we reaching out to these young people as we ought to, whether we are giving them civic education and empowering them on, rather giving them information on what it is that's afforded them in the Constitution. Are we structuring it in ways that are appealing to them? Are we using the avenues that they would, be on a kawaida basis, for lack of a better term, be using in that sense? I mean, among other challenges, including, access to some of these platforms where public participation takes place, and especially within Mashinani.
Thank you very much. And building upon the point that you mentioned, one of the challenges is access to information. And I remember one time that when I was arrested by the City Council Inspectorate, whom we call Kanjos, my friends from outside the country may not know, but it's a very, very traumatizing experience. I came to learn that in as much as bylaws number 8, the bylaws that we have in the county allow for the arrest, but our national constitution and the High Court ruled that they do not have the power to arrest. So how can young people find this information? And I'm going to build up to what Speak Up Africa does in making this information accessible online. So yes, we have the information accessible online, but what other challenges? What are some of these mechanisms that you as a person in the organization are working in order for young people who have smartphones like us, sometimes even better phones than the older people, can access this information?
Hi everyone. So to answer your question, I think we're compared to our parents, we are the generation that's mostly on the digital spaces. But then also compared to our parents, we're the generation that's barely noticing changes politically. So I think to that, we're trying to also adapt to what most youths prefer, and also trying to bring in, I feel like there's so many youths who know who Aziad is than what they know that the bill is being passed in parliament is. So now you see some of us are trying to advocate for this by now putting people like the youths follow to advocate for such instances, and also to write a lot and post a lot on the internet concerning this type of discussions. But then the challenge comes in with the intake, because you find it's quite easy for someone to swipe against a conversation that has to do with politics and improvement in the political spaces, compared to someone passing on someone doing like what the Odi dance. You understand? Like it's quite easy. So that's the challenge. I feel like the biggest challenge also, I would say, comes also from the backgrounds that we've grown up in. We're so used to the idea that, okay, for parliamentary spaces or political spaces are for the grown. Yes, they're for the grown. And even you can see perhaps a youth leader. You don't see so many representatives of like youth leaders even in parliament or even in places of office. You understand? So it makes people feel like, okay, this is not even my space. We just guarantee it as like, that's old people stuff. Forgetting we'll get old. Yeah? So then I think that's one of the biggest problems. And also the fact that the elder generation hasn't created a space for the younger generation to take in this stuff, because you undermine them, they get undermined, they feel like, okay, our perception or our ideas they don't hold any water. So then it makes the younger generation be like, I'll deal with it when I get older. You understand? So even the taxation, someone's like, I don't care, yet you're forgetting that the older generation want taxed for their cars, and then us, we're about to get taxed with the small money that we have. So I think that's the biggest challenge, the fact that there's no space for the older generation to like allow the younger generation to like come in and advocate for what they believe in. They have very strong values and very strong points of what they believe in. I think even the young generation, specifically Gen Z, they are changing even the workspaces. I saw a tweet the other day and someone was saying, Gen Z can't even wait. They can't even wait for even 2 days for their salary to be late. And someone wrote there and was like, you people advocate for nonsense. Why would I wait for 2 days for my salary to be late? You understand? So yeah, I feel like they need to create spaces for younger people and for the older generation to like ease their way in.
Yeah. So speaking of Twitter, because I use Instagram, if you go look at my Instagram page, you will not believe that I am a hustler, because the photos are well good. And one thing that we have seen people being arrested just because of posting a tweet, demanding action or demanding accountability. And it's a very big problem, not just in Kenya, even in Zambia. Last week, there was an incident where 4 people were arrested because they posted a tweet like, we don't support President Hakainde Hichilema's policies. So if this comes along, if these challenges are there, what alternatives can young people like I use? What are some of these remedies that I, as a young person, can seek when I am under such threats?
I think that's a very interesting question, Brian. And I say that because one, and you'll bear me witness, even in Kenya itself, the social media space at the moment sort of seems to have more power over you following the kawaida, legal frameworks or legal, outlines that we have, right? So that you can have someone that has broken the law being followed up on just because we've made noise on Twitter, or X now, or Facebook or whatever other avenue, much more than, so I can say the social media space in itself, we can actually use that as one of the tools that we can leverage on to ensure that we are reaching out as the young people for justice, because you'll also bear me witness that going through the court process itself, it's quite costly, and especially for young people. Again, it's time consuming. Trust me, there's no way you're investing that amount of time. Some cases actually last for up to years or decades, Are you waiting that long to be served your justice, while you have the option of using the social media to get a quicker attention to whatever it is that you feel needs to be addressed. So I'd say social media.
In response to that, I think for Kenyans, I think it works. Because I remember there was a time, I don't know if it was, I think it was in Nairobi. Along the towns, I think you see there's those canvases, not canvases, but those idols where they portray them in town. And there was like a very funny looking lion. I don't know who was the governor at the time, but it was a rant in Kenya. And that's why there's KOX, or before it was KOT. I think it works. Unfortunately, that sometimes you also get caught up in it, but it works. You see Moses Kuria, the trade issue, you see he went on national television saying, oh, the oil is, it's not the right price. And you see, people are like, no, you're lying. It's actually appreciated. It hasn't depreciated. So I think for us Kenyans, it works because it helps us call out our leaders without being traced outrightly. Because I think most of Kenyans are afraid of like speaking out and then just not being backed up by everyone else. So at least in KOX, you can just go there and rant. Although, there's a very thin line between ranting and cyberbullying, but then I guess it works for us. It works for us in so many other ways. I think for other countries, perhaps like Uganda and Tanzania, it's not as free. But I think in Kenya, it works for us, and we try our level best to call out our leaders through these spaces. And at least, clearly Kenyan leaders, you have to shame them for them to work. So if we have to shame some of them, we are going to have to. Even the thing that happened in Trans Nzoia, those students lost their money. And no one was going to follow up on that. But unfortunately, when this lady came over and she said, may I have a degree? I've been to school. I sell porridge, and then you come and take my money. Now the justice system it intervened. The president was like, okay, call these people. We need to understand what's happening. So for us, it's working. I would advocate for everyone to tweet. Just don't cyberbully, but yeah.
Yeah, and remember we have a Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act in 2018 that was assented into law by President Kenyatta at the time. So whatever you tweet may have consequences. But I'm going to ask a question to the audience. How many of you think that we have strong institutions? And by institutions, I don't mean universities. I mean parliament, judiciary, and the executive. How many think? How many don't think? How many don't know what even institutions we have in our country? Because that could also be. Okay, so we know from the last report from the Mo Ibrahim Foundation, they say that Kenya is actually growing in our rule of law indicators. However, when we hear the president, for example, when we see the president meeting the Chief Justice, I become worried, will I ever win a case against the executive in court? When we see parliamentarians being told by the president that they have to go and tanga, I become scared, will my petitions be accepted? So as a young person who's looking from the outside, and I see all this is happening, what other mechanisms, how can I leverage political parties, for example? How can I leverage other forums in order for me to access justice? Because all our goal today is building democracy, isn't it? Yes.
All right, thank you for that, Brian. So, one, it's true that the executive, as we've come to see, is actually it interferes a lot with the judiciary. And it's been a problem, not just for the present, government, might be a bit, limited in the present government or even the previous